Conditions May Apply by CinnamonPinecones. Read by Distracted by Books. Chapter 71. Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes? This sucked so much. Ivy had been stuck in a cramped cabinet for hours. The panic of being cornered had been ebbing and flowing through their veins the whole time, so President Mike's D-tier trash talk was music to their ears as it rattled the walls of the building. They peeked through the thin crack of the cabinet door, but Shimoda didn't seem overly bothered by the commotion. He perked his ears up and gave one of the other guys a look, but didn't poise himself to move. At least not until the sound of shattering glass and fighting rang out from the first floor. At that point, he hurriedly ushered his lackeys to go and check it out while he stayed hidden up in his office. Coward. Ivy waited a few seconds after they left to make sure they'd be tied up downstairs and would be less likely to double back before they sprung out of their hiding place and went to deliver a swift hit to Shimoda's vagus nerve. Apparently, Shimoda was more of a skilled fighter than Ivy had given him credit for, because he was on the defensive as soon as they spilled out of the cabinet. When he turned around and saw who was attacking him, the look of fury in his eyes was both terrifying and incredibly satisfying. On the one hand, someone looking at them with murderous intent was, at the very least, off-putting. But on the other hand, they were so proud to have pissed him off that much. They would gladly ruin this man's life 1,000 times over. They traded a few blows, but Ivy quickly got the upper hand and kicked him in the chest hard, sending him stumbling backward, causing him to trip on a chair and fall on his ass. Unfortunately, he recovered quickly and got his bearings back before Ivy could get another hit in. On his feet, he glared at them from across the room. He looked so mad, he damn near had smoke coming out of his ears. Wait, no, that was actually smoke. Ivy, you piece of shit, you're a dead man, he bellowed as he charged forward, flailing his right arm in a wild, sweeping motion. They had no clue what this man's quirk was, but smoke plus that sweeping motion was not something they wanted to see the results of, so they hit the ground as quickly as possible. Gummy, was that a good call? A pillar of fire erupted from the candle that had been sitting on the desk and tore through the empty space where their head had just been. Freaking fire? Why did it have to be fire? Nothing sent him into fight or flight more than fire or being cornered. Tonight was just getting better and better, wasn't it? Swallowing down their panic, they rolled to the side out of Shimoda's path and back onto their feet. He might be a good fighter, but he was nowhere near as fast as Ivy, with or without his quirk, and it was starting to look like he'd figured that out. He was furious. He was completely out of control. The fire had spread to the curtains and furniture in the room. Any paper had already been reduced to ash, and Shimoda wouldn't let them close enough to take him down. The oppressive heat of the room was getting to them, and each bright flash of orange threatened to send them back into a panic attack. They couldn't let that fire touch them. They had to get out. They had to get out. They had to. Shimoda almost got the better of them as panic sunk into their bones, and the next wave of fire missed their face by inches. Their vision was completely obscured by flames, and sweet goodness, that didn't do well for calming them down. They weren't sure if they'd already been burned or phantom pains were taking hold of their psyche. They couldn't get in close. They needed to take him down. He was standing between them and all possible exits. They weren't getting out if he was still standing. Willing their hand to be steady, they sent a knife flying, and it struck Shimoda's arm. He let out a shout of pain. However, he continued rampaging like nothing happened. Oh, hell. He was hopped up on adrenaline. He wasn't going to go down easy. They noticed too late that the fire had spread to the cabinet that they had been hiding in, though it's not like they could have done much about that anyway. The glass bottles held steady, but anything that had been in plastic bottles melted out and burst into flame. The air was getting thin, and the fire was starting to eat into the walls. Shimoda, stop! The pro hero Midnight is here, and she has no doubt put half of your men to sleep downstairs. You burn this place down, they'll all die before help arrives. You ruined everything! I'll burn it all as long as you go down with it! He shouted back as he sent another pillar of flame charging toward them. Mike, Midnight, evacuate as many people as possible. Fire has started on the upper floor. I'm going in, he warned before going to open the window and having it fall to the floor with a crash. Whatever, stealth was not his goal right now. He ran to the door as he assumed led to the room that the fire had started in, and he'd heard shouting and things banging around. Was it a bad idea to bust this door down? Most definitely. Possibly adding more oxygen to the flame-filled room was not a good plan, but nor was running into a flame-filled room in the first place. However, he could recognize Ivy's voice behind the door, and he wasn't about to just walk away from that. Eraser, no! Do not go in. Midnight and I are evacuating down here. I have paged the fire department, he heard Zashi shriek over the comm. There's still people upstairs, and Ivy is one of them. I'm already inside, and I'm not wasting any more breath arguing about this, he replied as he kicked open the door. The room beyond the threshold was in shambles. Flames licked their way up the walls, burning curtains and furniture, and a man was cornering Ivy away from the exits as he flailed his arms around, directing the flames after them, despite the several throwing knives sticking out of his extremities. He was bleeding heavily, but paying it no mind as he raged out of control. Flames were surrounding him, thus not allowing Ivy to get in close enough to take him out. They'd clearly been trying to with the throwing knives, but short of a lethal hit, it didn't look like the man was going down without being physically restrained. Shota erased the man's quirk as Ivy dodged the last barrage of flames headed for them. The man looked at Shota with so much fury that it almost gave him pause. He couldn't keep his eyes open with the heat and smoke in the room, so he wrapped the man in his capture weapon as fast as possible, hoping that restricting his movements would also restrict his quirk. As soon as the distraction presented itself, Ivy sprung forward and sent their baton crashing into the junction of the man's neck and shoulder with a pained shout as they had just jumped through fire to do so. Ivy! He shouted back in alarm, but they were already sprinting over to him and pushing him out of the room. Shota had rarely ever seen this level of fear in their eyes, so with all of his might, he reeled the unconscious man in like a fish on a line, dragged him out of the room, and shut the door as well as he could behind them. Ivy was dragging him toward the stairs by the arm before he could even attempt to latch it properly. Ivy, wait, we need to get him out of here, Shota tried to remind them. Leave him. He's fireproof. They shot back as they continued to try to drag him away. He's not collapsed building proof, he argued. It's his own fault. Come on. They snipped back. They were antsy. They were shaking. Just help me. We'll get out faster. With a clearly irritated eye twitch, Ivy walked back over, picked up one of the man's legs, and started dragging. Shota had no doubts that they would have let his head thump down each step if he hadn't picked up the man's shoulders. Upstairs has been evacuated. What's the situation downstairs? Shota asked on the comms. Mostly handled chaos. At least one person ran off. The rest are restrained or unconscious. Mike and I are still working on evacuating the latter party, Nem responded. Police and fire departments are about 4 minutes out, Zashi added. Do we have a cover story for this? Nem asked, responding to a call. Don't elaborate. You two know nothing more than that. I will deal with the police. Mike, did you contact Tsukauchi specifically? Yes. All right. Good. I'll deal with it. After finishing that conversation, he rested the unconscious man on the middle landing of the staircase, took his phone out of his pocket, threw it to the ground, and crushed it under his heel. Ivy shot him a look for that, but continued dragging the man down the stairs, paying no mind to the fact that Shota was no longer supporting his shoulders, just as he'd expected they would. Evidence, he explained. You have less than 4 minutes to get out of here. Do you need medical attention? No, not urgently. I'll let you know if that changes after I get the chance to look myself over, they responded. Damn, they must really want out of here. He expected that conversation to turn into at least a little bit of an argument. As they got the man to the first floor, Ivy looked around at the chaos that was unleashed down here. Nem and Zashi were still hauling people out, even though the fire wasn't spreading much across the mostly brick and concrete building. Ivy watched them hesitantly for a moment before looking back at him. Get out of here, kid. We've got this under control. The fire's not spreading very quickly and backup is en route. You need to go. Can you meet me a block and a half north of here in an hour? Yes, they stated simply as they went to leave, casting another look between him and Mike. Wait, are you breathing okay? How long were you in there? Shota asked before they left. He couldn't let them go running away if their lungs were about to give out. My breathing is fine. My mask has a lot of layers. I'm fine. Shota could hear distant sirens approaching. Tsukauchi will be here. Contact him if you need me, he said, as Ivy hauled it out of the place. Mike, midnight. Detective Tsukauchi will be here and will likely need to interview you two. His quirk is lie detector. He knows about Ivy and won't try to get info on them, more than necessary for the record. Speak in technical truths. You do not know their name. You do not know who they are. You have never met them. All of that is true. I responded to a call and you came with. That is all you know. Got it? Roger. Zashi responded through gritted teeth as he was no doubt hauling someone's unconscious body out of the building. You are going to have a lot of explaining to do when this is over, but yes, I've got it. Nem piped up afterward. After everyone had been hauled out of the building, Shota pulled the detective aside. What's it going to take to get me out of here? He asked, shooting Tsukauchi a look that said he had places to be and people to see. I'm guessing they were here. Are they okay? Okay enough to walk away on their own. I didn't get a good look at them, but they're likely burned to some degree. They were in the room where the fire started, he replied. Of course they were. All right. I can get away with a short interview here for now, just enough to prove I shouldn't be arresting you too. But I'll need to call at least you into the station later to give a proper statement, he warned. Got it. Just get it over with. The detective pulled a voice recorder out of his pocket and pressed start. This is Detective Sakashi of the Mustafu Police Department, here with Pro Hero Eraserhead. My quirk is called lie detector, meaning if you lie at any point during this interview, I will know. Do you consent to continue? He rattled off his spiel. Yes. All right. Why did you storm this warehouse without a warrant? You are aware the occupants had squatters' rights, aren't you? Tsukauchi began. Yes, I am aware. I've been patrolling this side of town for over a year, and I've gotten to know the locals. One of them contacted me with a distress call saying they were trapped in the building. I was out with my associates, and they responded to the call with me. That is true. Where is this local? We didn't evacuate any civilians beyond who we arrested. Did they make it out? They did, but I lost track of them. The locals don't like cops much, so I doubt they wanted to stick around and chat. True. Tsukauchi paused with a bit of an apologetic grimace before continuing. Who exactly contacted you? They'll likely need to be brought in for questioning. I don't know their name nor where they live. I currently have no way of contacting them, unfortunately. The detective looked both relieved and concerned before he continued. True. How did they contact you? My phone. True. Why can you not contact them then? My phone got destroyed somewhere in the chaos. True, the detective responded flatly, not letting his smirk color his tone. I have no more questions. Do you have any more statements? No, I do not. All right, then this concludes this interview. I will contact you if I have further questions, he said as he clicked off the recorder. You're sure they're okay? He asked after verifying the recorder had stopped and that no one was within earshot. As okay as they can be. I told them to meet me somewhere about 5 minutes ago. So if that's all, he trailed off with an expectant raise of his brow. Keep me updated, he requested as he handed Shota one of his business cards. Unless you have my number memorized, he said by way of explanation. Thanks, Shota replied as he pocketed it. You know we're not going to be able to keep half these guys in custody for more than 24 hours if we don't find anything here. I'm sure a lot of whatever would have been evidence is burnt beyond recognition, Sukachi said, just as Shota was about to excuse himself. I think Ivy's been up to some snooping. I'll see if I can find them and let you know, he admitted, trying his best to keep his concern out of his tone. They were fine enough now. What's done was done. All right, the sooner the better. I know, he called over his shoulder as he walked away. He was going to kill that damn kid. End of chapter.